Hey everybody, Darren Burrows here. Today I want to walk you through how to build your real estate investing power team. The two questions I get asked most often are, how do I get started as a real estate investor? And if I'm already a real estate investor, how do I build my portfolio? The answer to both of those questions is you need to start building out a real estate investing power team. Because if you don't have a power team and you're trying to do everything on your own, there's only so much that you can accomplish as a single individual. You are also most likely not an expert in these categories, and therefore mistakes can be costly and sometimes catastrophic to your real estate investing business. So I want to walk you through who's on my real estate investing power team, why they are vital to my business, and how you can start building out your real estate investing team as well. Before we get into it today, if you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and please feel free to leave comments and questions below for me. And without further ado, let's get into it. I have 10 people that are on my power team, and I don't necessarily use them on every single transaction, but it is good to have them on my team just in case I need them at any given time. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll tell you how you should be building out your power team and in which order you should be doing that. Number one is my mortgage broker. My mortgage broker is really important to me to make sure that they can get me access to capital that I need in my real estate investing business. The question always comes up, should I be using my local bank or should I use a mortgage broker? I'm a big fan of using a mortgage broker. Not to say that there's anything wrong with using someone at your local bank. I've just had more success with brokers because they have access to a variety of different lenders versus if you go to one specific bank, they only have access to their system. You want to make sure that you're working with a mortgage broker that is used to working with real estate investors. The problem with this is when you ask them if they're used to working with investors, of course they're going to say yes. But you're going to want to dig a little bit deeper and ask them how many investors they work with and how many of them have similar portfolios to the one you'd like to acquire. Ideally, you also want to find a mortgage broker that has access to private capital. And I cannot stress this enough, you really want to find a mortgage broker who is creative in the way that they think and the way that they put deals together. Ultimately, you may end up using more than one mortgage broker, and that's okay as long as they don't overlap. Find a mortgage broker that deals in single-family dwellings, find a mortgage broker that does commercial transactions, and then find a mortgage broker that deals with hard money lending. Those may all be the same person, but in my experience, you'll often have to rely on different mortgage brokers for different products in your portfolio. Number two, realtors. Now, realtors can get a bit of a bad rap, but a really good realtor is going to be a huge part of your team. There are a lot of realtors out there, so how do you find a good one? Realtors generally fall into the 90-10 rule, which means that 10% of realtors are doing 90% of the transactions. Having said that, just because a realtor does a large amount of transactions doesn't necessarily mean they'll be a quality person for you to work with as a real estate investor. So find realtors that are used to working with real estate investors and have them break down some cash flow for you on properties. What I mean by that is teach them your system and have them do some preliminary analysis on properties and only have them show you properties that have positive cash flow. That's going to save you and them a ton of time. And if you aren't sure how to break down cash flow, check out this video right here where I break down the 8 categories that I use to calculate positive cash flow. The third person on my team is my real estate lawyer. And notice how I just didn't say lawyer. You really want to be specific about this one. You want to find someone who caters their business to working with real estate and real estate investors specifically. You want them to review your purchase and sale agreements prior to removing conditions. You also want them to draft your joint venture agreements if necessary, set up your corporate structure, deal with closings and any refinances, and ultimately deal with anything and everything that comes up in relation to your real estate investing business. The things that I'm looking for with my real estate lawyer is that I want them to have quick response times, I want them to be super thorough, and I want them to be reasonably priced. But, as my dad has always taught me, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Number 4 on my list is my accountant and my bookkeeper. I group these two things together because it's really about dealing with finances. Some accountants do some bookkeeping, but in my experience, you'll want to hire someone separate to do bookkeeping from accounting because bookkeeping can often be hired at a much less rate than accounting. Again, you're going to want to find someone who's used to working with real estate investors, and if you have property in Canada and the US, you're going to want an accountant who really knows Canadian and US tax law. Find an accountant that will advise you on your real estate purchases from a tax perspective. They should also help you set up a business structure and an accounting system that works for you and your business. You want your bookkeeper to reconcile all of your transactions on at least a monthly basis and provide reporting to your accountant at the end of the year. And then you'll have your accountant file your tax returns in an organized and timely fashion. I also like to find an accountant that has a flat rate billing system so that I can call them anytime I need advice on a certain property or a transaction, as opposed to paying every single time I pick up the phone to call my accountant. Number 5 is my property manager. And I know that many of you are self-managing your properties, and I say that's okay. Having said that, as you start to build your business, you'll definitely want to look at hiring out property management. Managing your own properties takes time out of your day that you could be using to build your real estate investing business. And there's also some liability that transfers to you if you're managing your own properties. So I always suggest, if and when you can, hire out property management. You can either hire a property management company, or you can hire someone and then teach them your system and how you want them to manage properties. If you want to learn more about the different property management options, you can check out this video right here. And when it comes to property management, make sure you find a price structure that works for you. Some property managers will work on an a la carte system, and some will have an all-inclusive price. So make sure that the property manager and you talk about who's responsible for what and what the costs of each individual item are. Number 6 on my list is home inspectors. And with full transparency, I used to be a home inspector, and I can tell you it's a little bit of a thankless job. Make sure that you put a home inspector on your team that will serve your best interests, because ultimately you are the client. This is a balancing act for many inspectors because inspectors rely on real estate agents to refer them business. If a home inspector scares off too many potential buyers, a realtor won't refer them business anymore. But if a home inspector is too relaxed on their reporting, that can be a liability for them and a potential pitfall for their clients who are purchasing that property. So I look for home inspectors that have a good amount of experience in the industry, and ultimately communication is key. I've seen inspectors in the past who feel like they're doing a good job if they tell you the sky is falling on every single property you want to buy. But it's all about perspective, because a home can have knob and tube wiring, for instance, and the cost to replace that wiring can be up to $10,000. But if every other house in that neighborhood has a similar type of wiring, and if it hasn't been upgraded, it's a common thing to find in a house of that age. So it's really about how that home inspector communicates everything back to you and puts it in the right perspective as a potential buyer. This is another category where you may need to have multiple inspectors on your team. Not all inspectors do single family dwellings and commercial residential, so you may have to find different inspectors for different properties. Find inspectors who use digital reporting so that they take pictures and that shows up in the report, and also find inspectors that are using the latest tools and gadgets, and that's not an extra cost to you as the consumer. Number 7 on my team is my contractor, and a good contractor is worth their weight in gold. I like to find contractors that will come and do walkthroughs with me on potential properties. I'm not bringing them to every single property that I'm looking at, but once I have a property under contract and I plan to buy it, I like to have my contractor walk through it with me when I'm looking at the possibility of renovating that property. Ask your contractors to start to break things down for you on a price per square foot basis. For instance, if you know that vinyl plank flooring is going to cost about $5 a square foot for supply and install, you don't have to have your contractor maybe walk through every property. Once you figure out a cost per square foot, you can measure up the property and you can figure out some basic line item budgets for your renovations. Make sure that your contractors are insured and licensed. They run a clean and organized job site with no cigarette butts and coffee cups, and ultimately that they're going to be good with your neighbors. Get detailed pricing and description from your contractors, but please don't make them break down every single item based on materials and labor. They will probably not want to do this. Another thing that I look for in my contractors is that they complete the job on time and on budget. And I'll give them a 10 to 15% range on both of those things. And if you haven't seen my video on why you can't find a good contractor, I'll link it right here. Number 8 on my list is my insurance broker, and I know I've said this many times, but you want to find somebody who's used to working with real estate investors. There are very different insurance products on the market when it comes to homeowners versus rental properties. Please, please, please do not get a homeowner's policy on a rental property. There are specific policies that are catered to rental properties. These policies can have provisions for things like tenant damage, vacancy, and lost revenue. Yes, there is an additional premium that you'll have to pay to have these kinds of policies, but You'll never have to worry about if a tenant damages your property if you have tenant damage in your coverage. Number 9 on my list is my designer and or my architect. I prefer to work with designers who can produce BCIN drawings. These are building code drawings. Or I like to work with designers who have an architect that they send their drawings out to, and then the architect produces the drawings that can be submitted to the building department. For me, because I do a lot of conversion of properties, I want to make sure I find a designer and an architect who are used to doing those kinds of conversion projects. You want your designers and architects to have an eye for detail and design, but ultimately you want them to also be price conscious and cost effective. Remember, these are rental properties, so you want them to have good quality finishes at affordable prices that look good and feel good to your potential tenants. You want to find a designer or architect who can turn around drawings quickly. They have good support teams such as engineers, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing designers, and they might have preferred relationships with local suppliers that you can get discounts on products that you want to use in your rentals. And number 10 on my list is appraisers. You can't really have an appraiser on your team per se, but you can find an appraiser or appraisers that are approved by your local lender, and you can start to build a relationship with them. And you also want to find an appraiser who's willing to walk through the property with you and talk about all the renovations that have been completed. And ideally, they're going to take this into account when they're valuing the property. And of course, you want to find an appraiser who has quick turnaround times so you can get those appraisals back to the bank so you can get funding for your transactions. So those are the 10 people that are on my power team. And earlier I promised you that I would rank them in order of importance. And I've already done that. The order that I laid them out for you in this video is the order that I want you to build your team in. So now it's your turn to go out and find quality people in your local area to start building your team, or in some cases, start rebuilding your team. If you've got a great power team member that you'd like to share with me or anyone else, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. You can also subscribe to my channel, and please feel free to leave comments and questions below for me. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or check out my website at darrenvoros.com. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching. I wish you the best of success on your real estate investing journey, and I look forward to hearing your success stories very soon.